Hey, welcome back everyone. I'm doing another epic Snuggle Bunny video for you, and today's knife isn't actually a knife that you can purchase. Today I'm going to show you guys a heavily modified knife, almost to the point that it becomes a new knife, or to the point that it is in fact a new knife. So this isn't really a review per se, more of an overview, more of food for thought, and you know, it might make a really good topic for discussion or add to the current discussions that are already in play. So today I'm going to show you guys a knife that's called the Butchered Brous. And as you can see, this is a nice little kind of butcher design, and it's a modified Brous division flipper full size. So this knife actually belongs to Phil, aka Mapreek, the knife modifying guy, and this is the last video from the current shipment that I have of the three that I've taken a look at. So there was the Autobahn by Jerome Ovier, and then there was the Mosier Kendrick design that I showed you guys. So anyways, here's the knife in question, and again, this is definitely not what the Brous division flipper initially looked like. He's got a cool little lanyard bead guy on here that's it's pretty sweet. I'm not a lanyard guy, and I don't really like lanyards, but I think it works really well on this knife. I don't know. I think this knife is just kind of fun and quirky, and it's super useful. It's just a great utilitarian knife, and so I don't know. It goes well, or it just kind of matches the vibe that I think that this knife gives, which is that of, I don't know. I think it's fun. So anyways, let's first talk about kind of the differences in the specs from the initial Brous division flipper to this modified one, so you can kind of get an idea of how much change actually occurred. So I pulled the specs off of Blade HQ. Hopefully they're correct. But the initial overall length on the Brous division flipper is a whopping 9.8 inches. It's a beast of a knife. That's really the problem that Phil had with it when he got it, is it was really big. So the blade length initially was 4.3 inches, 4.37 inches. The handle length was initially 5.8 inches, which pretty big. And then again, overall length was 9.8 inches. The handle thickness hasn't changed. It's a pretty fat knife. It's about 0.77 inches thick. So you know, that's just about as thick as they get really for a folding pocket knife. So really big, really fat. Although initially the weight wasn't bad. If the specs are correct from Blade HQ, 5.73 ounces, which for a blade this big and this fat, that's actually pretty good, and that's due in part to the carbon fiber. And this is actually quite beautiful carbon fiber. I think that Mr. Brous, he uses really nice carbon fiber, has a really good texture in the hand. It's smooth, but it does offer a little bit of grip. But anyway, so the carbon fiber plus the titanium liners really is what helps keep the weight down on the big bad mofo version of this. While we're at it, the lock bar relief is actually really nice, and they did carbonize the lock face, and so I initially thought these were stainless steel liners just because the lock face interacts so well with the blade and the blade tang, but these are, again, assuming the specs can be trusted, are titanium liners. So, oh, the ball bearing system is also really nice on this, really smooth. And the flipper tab, the ergonomics, or not the ergonomics, the design, the geometry on it allows you to push button or flip it, light switch it like I just did very well. So there are a lot of nice elements on this knife. You know, I think it has a lot going for it aside from that huge size that it initially was. And you know, you're going to have people that really, you know, you have people all the time on the forums that just kind of bitch and moan, why don't they make big knives? Why don't they make big knives? And then they finally make big knives, and it's like, well, damn, that's a big knife. I don't really know that I can carry it. So I think the majority like the smaller knives. So what happened was Phil got this knife, and he decided that it was too big. And, you know, whereas most of us, we would obviously go back to the forums, put that thing back up for sale ASAP, and hopefully not take too much of a hit. He said, screw it, I'm gonna modify it. And Phil wanted me to make sure to to thank or give credit to Alexander Dietz, who I think most of us are familiar with. He's done a lot of modifying work, and he now has his own knife brand that he's working on. But Phil lives pretty close to Alex, and so Alex was looking over his shoulder and helping him on this mod. So a lot of work actually went into it. Again, as you can see, obviously the blade was reprofiled, the handle was shortened significantly. He did a really, really nice acid etch stone wash. Look how consistent that is. Just beautifully done. Beautifully done. And then, of course, you had to, you know, retap and do all the work to get that pocket clip back on there. So anyways, I know I skipped over the new specs. Let's talk about the new specs on this thing. So I'm going to give you kind of rough measurements. I know people have different places that they measure from. Sometimes the pivot, sometimes it's the bottom portion of the blade. But essentially what you're looking at here is just about a 3-inch blade. So it went down from the 4.37-inch blade down to just a 3-inch blade. So you lost about 1.3 inches on it. So, you know, took it down quite a bit. The cutting edge is 2.5 inches on this knife. I don't know what the cutting edge was initially on the Brous Division Flipper, but you got a 2.5 inch cutting blade right here. And the handle is now about 4.25 inches versus the initial 5.8 inches. So, you know, you took a good bit off there, and so overall you're looking at about 6.25 inches, 6.75 inches versus the initial 9.8 inches. So that's a 3-inch difference, which is fairly significant in looking at two different knives where there's a 3-inch difference. So about 6.25, and then the weight went from 5.73 to about 4.7 inches, so it saved an ounce. I'm sorry, I probably said inches. The weight went from 5.73 ounces to 4.7 ounces. So you saved an ounce of weight, taking off essentially 3 inches on the knife. And I would have thought that it would have saved more. But again, I'm using my scale and I'm looking at someone else's measurements, so I don't really have a perfect before and after picture. So anyways, those are all the modifications that have changed on the knife. And again, what I was saying is I really like the fact that what Phil did is he got the knife. It wasn't what he had expected, and so instead of flipping it, he just said, screw it, I'm modifying it. And I think that's something that we deal with a lot in this hobby. We can't really get our hands on everything before we purchase it. Actually, most things that we were really interested in, you know, you have to kind of buy it. And you have kind of a picture of what it's going to be like for you to own. You know, how's it going to feel in your hand? How's it going to cut? How's it going to carry in the pocket? How's the pocket extraction, taking it in and out? How's the flipping action? How are the ergonomics? How good is the jimping? And you know, we can research, we can look at videos such as this one, we can ask people, we can do all these things, but in reality, until we actually get to hold it or test it or touch it or maybe even carry it for a few days, we can't really get that exact picture. And so sometimes we have something built up to this image of what it could be for us, and then it's a huge letdown. Or perhaps there are bits and pieces that really annoy us to the point where we're not going to keep the knife anymore. And I know that I've dealt with that time and time again, because even though I have Blade HQ fairly close to me, which is a huge benefit, they don't necessarily carry everything that I want to try, and I definitely can't try the customs anywhere that I'm interested in. So, you know, it's really that risk and reward scenario. So instead of flipping it, Phil said, screw it, I'm modifying it. Went down to Alex's, and he set to work. He initially just kind of sketched it on a piece of paper, and that's what he did. Now, some of the questions that come into mind are, you know, what is this knife now? Is it, you know, is it a production, which is what some people modify, or some people view the Brous knives as, or I think Brous himself calls it a mid-tech. Is it a mid-tech? Is it a quote-unquote customized knife? Is it a custom knife? I mean, really, how do you classify this knife now? And I know that the Knife Thursday guys, they've been kind of delving into this over this last season, is how do you classify the knives? And even more importantly, what is the value that we associate with the different levels, because obviously those are graded levels as we delve more into the hobby, and each one has an entry price or a price point for the most part. So, you know, this is without question a one of a kind. It is definitely customized. Is it a custom knife? Does it command custom prices? I think we can't really call it a production knife anymore, and you know, whether or not you want to call it a mid-tech, as Jason Brous does, you know, these are all good questions. So, and I don't really know that I have an answer for it. I think really what it's going to come down to is how bad does someone want it? So when Phil first put this up, he had a number of people that contacted him about the knife and said, hey, I really want you to do that to my Division flipper. What's it going to cost? And in reality, the amount of work that had to go into this knife to make it as you see it now is about, you know, time invested and everything is probably about $200 worth of work. And so you're taking essentially a $400 knife and you're putting another $200 into it. So at $600, you know, you can start getting into some custom knives from custom makers, be it whether you specify what's on the knife or you simply buy it on the secondary market from someone else that did. I mean, that's kind of that entry price point into the custom world, is about mid-5, low-6 type of price range. So, you know, if you want it bad enough, you know, I'm sure that you'll be willing to pay those prices. You know, if it's something that you really, really want, or perhaps you have a Brous that you got secondhand and the thing's beat to crap and you can't get your money back, perhaps this is another viable option. Or, you know, perhaps the other reason would be that perhaps you have a Division flipper or any knife and you're just tired of it, you're bored of it, and instead of trying to go back to the market and see what it's valued at, you'll just say, you know what, I'm just going to invest, you know, X amount of dollars into the knife and I'll have essentially a whole new knife. So let's do a quick size comparison. And then both of these knives that I'm showing you are modified as well. So here I have a Benchmade mini grip, very popular knife. I think a lot of people have handled them. Let's just see how the size compares real quick. So here we go. It's actually quite comparable in size to the to this Butchered Brous here. Let's go. Yeah, it's pretty much the same exact size as the Brous, and this one does have some custom carbon fiber scales from Death of All Things, and I bought this on the secondary and I basically paid double the price of what a mini grip would typically cost. This one also has the S30V. But anyways, you know, I've said in previous videos, if you're going to customize a knife, you can pretty much expect to double the cost of the initial knife. This one, same case. Benchmade 710, this is in the D2. Very common knife. Let's take a look at the size difference here. Obviously, I'm having trouble getting it all in the frame here, but that Benchmade is quite a bit longer. It's probably got, oh gosh, maybe 2 inches on this thing. And this one is with the, they're called white Juma, but that's kind of a misnomer. They're actually more of an ivory colored Juma, so don't get your hopes up. But it's an ivory, they have custom ivory Juma scales from Keeman, who does a lot of Benchmade mods, and this one also doubled the price of the knife before Benchmade jacked their prices. So, but with this one, you know, it's half the price of the knife to essentially create a new knife, and so is that of interest to some people? Is that of value? These are good questions. Oh, it's also got a really nice choil here as a side note. So again, you know, what is it? What is it worth? Is it worth $600 to you? It may or may not be. You know, I'm sure that at some point Phil's going to have guys coming in and saying, well, I can see there that you just hacked the damn thing up, so I'll give you 50 bucks for it. Because we all have those people where you've run into with various knives, and really their expectations or their thought of what things are worth. So, let's see, what else did I want to talk about? You know, that's pretty much it. I guess, you know, just the real question is how do you associate value with it, and if you want it bad enough, you know, it might be worth that money to you. If you don't, you might look at it and say, that's cool, but it's not for me. Now, a few notes on actual use. Again, I talked about how fat this thing is, but in this size factor, it's actually really, really comfortable. I mean, this thing is just a tremendous user. The blade profile is great for cutting. It's You know, it's got a tiny bit of a tip. I don't know that it's really tactile anymore, but it's just a great user. And this little stylistic embellishment here works for the finger flick, if you want to do middle finger flick on it. Or again, the flipper tab works exceptionally well. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble underneath the camera. But yeah, so Phil actually sent it to me just to check out. He didn't actually, wasn't under the impression I'd do a video on it, but I thought it'd be cool just to kind of show you guys and, you know, show you what's an option. And I really think that this is a great tribute to doing what you want, to creating what you want, to taking something and really making it yours and really making it something that you enjoy. And a couple days ago, Phil posted on Instagram that he had missed this thing, and he posted a picture of it. And I can definitely understand why. Again, it's just a great user. It's a great knife, and it's something that he built specifically for himself. And you know, luckily he had the skills as well as the help to create something like this. But you know, I would say don't be afraid to take a knife and do what you want to it, or have someone do what you want to it. You know, it's only a hack job if you don't like it. And hopefully you know what you're doing before you get into it, or have been very clear with the modifier what you'd like done. So anyways, food for thought. I think it's really cool. If you ever get the chance to meet Phil at a knife show, I know he stays pretty busy with work or something. Hopefully he has this bad boy on him, and you know, you can go ahead and check this out. Flip it, play with it. I think this Brous is actually fairly nice. That it was a great platform to work on. And I haven't held the division, but I might want to at some point now. So anyways, that's pretty much it. Thanks so much for watching. If you watched all the way to the end, kudos, and you are a true addict. So see you guys later.